Good morning, everybody. We're looking very thin this morning, but if I could encourage you to be seated so that we could encourage others to join if they're here. In order to begin, I will give, I don't think we have a quorum, therefore we will give 10 more minutes to wait for other committee members to join us. Thank you very much. I said we will begin in 10 minutes, but I think we have a quorum, therefore we will proceed with our meeting. I would like to make just two announcements before we proceed. The first one with regards to the timetable. As you know, tomorrow is our last working day, and there is a session in the morning which is the adoption of a decision, item 16, and then we have a closing ceremony in the evening. In our bureau meeting this morning, it has been decided that we will have the adoption of decisions in the afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock, and then have the closing ceremony, which leaves you Wednesday morning free. That's one announcement, and then the other request or appeal is for the vice chairs and rapporteurs to nominate themselves for the next session, the 39th session of the World Heritage Committee. With that being said, we will now be discussing 10A, 10B, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We will possibly extend to 2 p.m. today if we don't finish the items with the time allocated. This is because the Secretariat will have to prepare the report in the afternoon, and we would like to finish all the outstanding items by the morning session. So with that being said, I would like to begin with item 10A, which is a final report on the result of the second cycle of the periodic reporting exercise for North America and progress report for the Europe region. You have in front of you document 10A. And now I will give the floor to Mrs. Petya Tocharova from the World Heritage Center, who will introduce this item. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The document 10A, as was announced by the chairperson, concerns the final report on the results of the second cycle of the periodic reporting exercise for North America and the progress report for the Europe region. Basically, the document 10A consists of two parts. The first part includes the final periodic report for North America, and the second part, the progress report for Europe. I would like, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the representatives of the two states parties from North America. Mr. Stephen Morris, who's Chief of Office of International Affairs, Department of the Interior in the U.S. National Park Service, and Ms. Rebecca Kennedy from the International Programs Department of the Parks of Canada, who will make a brief presentation on the outcomes of the periodic reporting exercise in their region. I'd just like to flag that the periodic reporting for North America was prepared by the focal points for World Heritage in the two states parties in the sub-region, and the translation of the periodic report for North America into French was kindly provided by the State Party of Canada. So, Madam Chair, you may wish to pass the floor to Mr. Stephen Morris and Ms. Rebecca Kennedy to present the outcomes of their final report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Mrs. Kennedy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be a very brief report, as we know there is a lot on the agenda for today. I'll begin by just summarizing what the second cycle of periodic reporting for North America covered. It included reporting on 37 properties. You can see the breakout between the natural sites, the cultural sites, and the one mixed site. In addition to completing the online questionnaire, which the site managers completed, the second cycle also included work on retrospective statements of outstanding universal value and also retrospective inventories for geographic and cartographic information. Since many of the sites in North America were inscribed years ago in the early days of the World Heritage Program, the maps and information related to boundaries had to be, in many cases, strengthened. So that was a big part of our report. The reporting process involved in Canada a meeting of the site managers and others involved in the reporting process. In the United States, we did it by a telephone conference call, given the distance and travel costs involved. I should make an observation that these are relatively few sites, 37 sites spread out over a very large geographic area with a wide variety of climates, geographic and cultural influences, with only 2 state parties involved. And it was our World Heritage Program in North America is relatively lightly staffed in terms of the focal points in the national bodies. It's 5 people in total who are involved, so there's a limited capacity to cover a large area. We did receive consultation from the World Heritage Center and also advice from the advisory bodies who reviewed, in particular, the retrospective statements of outstanding universal value. Several of those statements were adopted yesterday for the North American sites, and we're still working on other ones. I'd say that one thing is we do share in the region, many of the cultural sites share themes and attributes with the Latin American and Caribbean region, for example, colonial experiences and a focus on indigenous peoples. So with that, I think what I'd like to do is turn it over to Rebecca.
Thank you. As you see on the screen, state of conservation is generally good across both state parties. There remains one site on the danger list, the Everglades in the United States. Issues noted by site managers are common to World Heritage sites around the world in general, but these are not severe enough to pose threats to OUV. They do continue to present challenges which are addressed through existing legal and regulatory frameworks of both countries at either the national or state or provincial level. And with that, I return the parole to my colleague from the US.
In terms of the conclusions of the reporting exercise, I think we can say there is generally limited awareness of the World Heritage Convention in the sub-region, in the North American sub-region. We also, as was expected, there are external development pressures in some areas, particularly where the national government does not have direct jurisdiction. There is a lot of interest from the public and stakeholders in tentative lists, and we are having discussions between the 2 state parties about how we might harmonize our tentative lists. We are generally on the same schedule for considering revisions to the tentative lists, so we are engaged in those discussions. We believe there's further opportunities for international cooperation. Another conclusion is that the potential effects of climate change were cited by many of the sites as an issue for the future. And we feel there's definitely potential for more promotional activities to raise the visibility of World Heritage in the sub-region. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mrs. Chacharova.
You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Rebecca, for your presentation. And as far as the second part of the document is concerned, it addresses the implementation of the second cycle in the Europe region and provides an outline of the progress made so far. I would not wish to go into much detail on the issues addressed in the document, as most of the European delegations know. We had a side event in which we presented the intermediary results and addressed issues which might be challenging. The first thing that I want to highlight is a save a date appeal. The next final meeting for the European region periodic reporting second cycle will take place in Finland, further to the kind invitation of the State Party of Finland, in the first week of December. Of course, more information will be provided, but the Secretariat would like to express its appreciation for the kind invitation of Finland to host this meeting. That meeting will actually give the opportunity to discuss the final, also the final outcomes, but also the action plan for the whole region of Europe and its sub-regions. The next committee, in 2015, the 39th session, will actually examine the final report for Europe and the action plan. Another element that I'd like to briefly flag is the publication that we are planning to publish together with the report presented to the committee. A publication which will include main conclusions, trends, lessons learned, future opportunities, and would be more specifically addressed to the professionals, but not only the different stakeholders in the field, as well as the more general public in a certain way. I'd also would also like to share the appreciation of all the states parties from the region for the support that we have received from many states parties, and mainly in the past year to Italy and Azerbaijan, who have hosted two respective periodic reporting meetings. Thank you very much to those states parties. This is very, in a nutshell, the brief presentation of the main issues addressed in the document. Just before finishing, I'd like to say that we have made a really conscious effort to provide as much as possible information to the states parties as soon as the information was received, that the questionnaires were submitted, so that states parties can use the statistics, can use the data which was provided for their own purposes of policy planning, capacity building, and so on and so forth. And an online platform is available, a lot of information necessary for the completion of the questionnaire is available there, and we have a help desk which can provide assistance support at any time when requested by states parties, among those who are still to submit the questionnaire by 31st of December. That is the so-called Group B, which has to submit the questionnaire by the 31st of July 2014. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That's all the information that I wanted to present.
Thank you very much. We will now examine the draft decision 38-10A.1 and 38-10A.2, which are contained in the document you have under Part 3. Mr. Rapporteur, did you receive any proposed amendments regarding these draft decisions?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and good morning. For this draft decision, the Rapporteur has received no amendment, so you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no amendments have been proposed. I therefore declare decision 38-10A.1 and 10A.2 adopted. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 10B. Distinguished colleagues, we will now deal with the progress report on periodic reporting in all the regions. The relevant document is document 10B. As you have seen, this document is covering the follow-up activities in 4 different regions: Asia and the Pacific, Section 1, Africa, Section 2, the Arab States, Section 3, and Latin America and the Caribbean, Section 4. Consequently, 4 separate decisions will have to be taken. I would like to first give the floor to Mr. Jing from the World Heritage Center, who will present what concerns the Asia and Pacific region. Mr. Jing, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Salam alaikum. The progress report for review under this item is contained in Working Document 38-10B Part 1. In June last year, the committee examined the progress made on the follow-up of the second cycle of periodical reporting for the Asia-Pacific region in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. It should be noted that despite the current financial difficulties at UNESCO, some activities have been organized since July 2013 using extra budgetary resources or partner institutions such as Category 2 centers under the auspices of UNESCO. For instance, in November last year, the General Conference of UNESCO approved the establishment of a Center for World Natural Heritage Management and Training for the Asia and the Pacific region as part of the Wildlife Institute of India in Dehradun, India. This shows the State Party of India's commitment to the protection of world's natural heritage through its support to the new center. In fact, specific actions had already been requested by the committee during your deliberations yesterday morning, where reviewing the World Heritage nomination of the Great Himalaya National Park. Currently, the related agreement is expected to be signed shortly between the Government of India and the Director General of UNESCO. For the Pacific region, thanks to the financial support of the Australian Founding Trust available at the World Heritage Center, a World Heritage workshop was organized from 27th to 30th November last year in Suva, Fiji. The workshop reviewed progress towards the implementation of the Pacific World Heritage Action Plan 2010-2015 and the establishment of the Pacific Heritage Hub. Other regional or sub-regional training activities will be organized by the World Heritage Institute of Training and Research for the Asia-Pacific region, WETRAP, together with ICROM in Vietnam and China in the second half of this year. In line with Decision 36-10A and 37-10C.1, WETRAP developed a capacity building strategy for the Asia-Pacific region. A side event was organized during the committee session on the 17th of June to debrief the Asia-Pacific States Parties, committee members, and other partners on the progress made so far. In the framework of the midterm strategy of WETRAP, it seeks to establish a regional online platform to follow up on the implementation of this strategy, to continue dialogue and enhance regional institutional cooperation in response to the priority actions identified in the action plan. Last but not least, the World Heritage Center wishes to remind the states parties in the region which have not submitted their retrospective statement of outstanding universal value for culture and natural properties to do so by 1st of February 2015 at the latest, as well as the clarification of heritage boundaries by 1st December 2014. Also, we wish to thank all the state party, the World Heritage focal points across the region, colleagues of the advisory bodies, staff of UNESCO field offices, and other institutions who provided support to the follow-up actions in the region. The draft decision is proposed on pages 2 and 3 of both English and French versions of the working document. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jing. I would like to remind you that we are also invited to adopt the first draft decision of 38Com 10B.1 included in Section 1, Part B of Document 10B you have in front of you. Mr. Rapporteur, any proposed amendments received for this draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No amendments for this draft decision. Thank you.
Are there any comments in the room? I see none. I therefore declare decision 38Com 10B.1 adopted. I would now like to give the floor to Mrs. Monte from the World Heritage Center, who will present to us the follow-up activities concerning the Africa region. Please, Madame, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following the committee's endorsement of the results of the second cycle of periodic reporting in the Africa region and its regional action plan, activities have continued to be organized to implement Decision 36Com 10A in cooperation with states parties, the World Heritage Center, UNESCO field offices, the advisory bodies, the African World Heritage Fund Category 2 Center, and other implementation partners and donors. The World Heritage Center has recently updated the status of the implementation of the Action Plan 2012-2017 for the Africa region, which can be found on the World Heritage Center website. We would like to appeal to all states parties from the Africa region to send us updated information on national efforts in order to keep this plan up to date on progress made. Highlights of activities undertaken since mid-2013 within the framework of the Action Plan for Africa and its regional capacity building program include the continuation of the 3-year project entitled Implementation Program of Second Periodic Report in Africa for Cultural Heritage, which is financed by the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the African World Heritage Fund. We have organized 6 training workshops since the last committee session on nomination training, disaster risk preparedness, and entrepreneurship training. In the framework of the Africa Nature Program, financed by the states parties of Spain, the Netherlands, and Belgium through the Flanders Funds and Trust, as well as the UNDP, IUCN, and the African World Heritage Fund, highlights of action include guidelines for engaging local communities in the conservation of world heritage, which have been developed and tested in Kenya, Cameroon, and Ethiopia. Their publication is foreseen in 2014 as part of the World Heritage Paper Series. The Enhancing Our Heritage Management Effectiveness Assessments have been carried out at 10 African World Heritage sites, and a World Heritage Knowledge Sharing Network was initiated. A dedicated website for the Africa Nature Program has also been developed. A training workshop on climate change adaptation for African natural World Heritage sites and the final workshop for the pilot phase of the Africa Nature Program were also held. The World Heritage Center would like to thank all of the donors and partners who have made these accomplishments possible. We would also like to appeal to all states parties to contribute funds and resources to the continued implementation of the Action Plan for the Africa region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind you that we also have to adopt the second draft decision 38Com B.12 included in Section 2, Part B of Document 10B you have in front of you. Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments? Oh, sorry, Senegal, you would like to speak. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons consulté avec beaucoup d'attention ce projet de résolution. Il appelle de notre part quelques commentaires. Je pense que nous avons tous vécu cette 38e session et on a vu les résultats qui en sont sortis. Nous pensons que la position de l'Afrique est très difficile dans cette convention à ce moment. D'abord, en termes de gouvernance, nous sommes presque absents du comité du patrimoine. Et en termes de viabilité et de visibilité, il y a quelques difficultés au niveau du centre. Bien sûr, nous ne remercierons jamais assez tous ceux qui, depuis des années, au niveau du centre et au niveau de certains États partis, continuent à appuyer fermement, fortement, durablement l'Afrique à travers le centre, à travers le Fonds africain pour le patrimoine mondial, à travers aussi des appuis multilatéraux et bilatéraux extrêmement importants. Nous en sommes conscients. Cependant, la réalité est ce qu'elle est. Aujourd'hui, on ne peut pas relever la position de l'Afrique dans la Convention, notamment en termes de nomination, si l'unité Afrique au sein du Centre du patrimoine mondial est faible. Or, aujourd'hui, elle est faible. On peut même dire qu'elle est dans un état anomique, voire végétatif. Il faut que des efforts conséquents soient faits pour qu'on ait une unité Afrique forte qui soit en mesure de conseiller de manière conséquente les pays africains et d'être notre interlocuteur au niveau de la gouvernance de cette convention. En conséquence, nous aimerions, Madame la Présidente, qu'il soit dit très clairement au niveau de ce projet de résolution que des efforts sont à faire au niveau du centre pour faire de telle sorte que l'unité Afrique soit plus forte, soit plus efficace et soit plus à l'écoute des préoccupations de l'Afrique dans ce comité, parce que le résultat auquel nous sommes parvenus ici, c'est-à-dire une inscription sur environ 30, est tout à fait de nature à aller à l'encontre de ce qu'on a vu ou de ce qu'on a voulu dans le cadre d'une liste représentative, équilibrée et équitable. Merci.
Thank you very much. Senegal, Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, je saisis cette occasion pour remercier et exprimer vraiment notre gratitude au secrétariat pour les efforts qu'il fournit aux pays africains afin de renforcer leurs capacités dans ces domaines qui sont assez nouveaux aussi, il faut le reconnaître. Donc il y a effectivement un effort à faire au niveau des pays africains. Donc, exprimer quand même notre gratitude pour ces efforts-là et inviter aussi nos pays, enfin en tout cas les pays africains, à participer davantage. Peut-être qu'il y a aussi un effort à faire des deux côtés. Mais tel que nous voyons, et les programmes qui existent en tout cas, méritent vraiment d'être soulignés, méritent d'être poursuivis surtout. Donc, à travers vous, nous encourageons le secrétariat dans les efforts qu'il a déjà fournis à cet égard. Merci.
Thank you, Algeria. If there are no more comments to be made, I will pass. You would like? Okay, Mr. Rao would like to respond to the Senegal. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good morning to all committee members. Very briefly, Madam Chair, the sentiments expressed by the distinguished delegate of Senegal are taken on board. You are aware that the Director General has issued a note announcing the new structure of the culture sector, including the World Heritage Center, and we have now a uniform staffing structure for all the regional units. So the staffing will now be strengthened in all the regional units of the World Heritage Center. And more than that, I think the important thing to note is that there is staff that has now been redeployed also to the field offices in all the regions, including the Africa region. And you should also bear in mind that we work very closely with the African World Heritage Fund. So that is also adding to the capacity. So rest assured that we will continue to give priority to activities in the field in the countries of the Africa region, from the center, from our field offices, and through the Category 2 center. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments with regard to this draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have received no amendments, so you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I therefore declare decision 38-10B.2 adopted. Can we now adopt draft decision? Yeah, sorry. Allow me now to give the floor to Mrs. Al-Hassan from the World Heritage Center, who will present to us what concerns the Arab State region. Madame, you have the floor.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. Mesdames et messieurs, صباح الخير. Le deuxième cycle des rapports périodiques dans les États arabes a été présenté au Comité du patrimoine mondial à Brasilia en 2010. L'année suivante à Paris, le comité a approuvé le programme régional pour les États arabes qui définissait 5 priorités. La mise en œuvre de la Convention au niveau national par la désignation de points focaux pour le patrimoine naturel et culturel dans chaque pays et la création de comités nationaux pour le patrimoine mondial. La mise à jour des listes indicatives pour le patrimoine mondial et leur harmonisation, la préparation de dossiers d'inscription avec une meilleure représentativité du patrimoine naturel sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, la gestion des biens et enfin l'amélioration de l'accès à l'information, notamment en arabe. Le renforcement des compétences et la formation sont 2 éléments transversaux pour la mise en œuvre de ces 5 actions prioritaires. Les termes de la mise en œuvre de ce programme sont discutés lors d'une réunion régionale annuelle des points focaux du patrimoine culturel et naturel. Outre l'augmentation progressive de ces points focaux désignés par les États parties de la région, notamment pour les questions liées au patrimoine naturel, il est à noter que plusieurs États parties, dont l'Irak, la Jordanie, la Mauritanie, la Tunisie, mais aussi le Soudan et la Palestine, ont établi ou sont en passe d'établir des entités nationales pour gérer le patrimoine mondial avec plus de ressources. Ceci permet de dynamiser la Convention dans ces pays et de maintenir un dialogue régulier et ouvert avec le Centre du patrimoine mondial. Depuis la dernière session du comité, nous avons mis en œuvre les activités suivantes. Le renforcement des compétences en 3 ateliers de formation, un atelier national au Koweït en février dernier pour la révision de la liste indicative, un atelier sur le processus d'inscription à Casablanca en avril 2014 centré sur la ville moderne de Casablanca, un atelier de gestion à Abu Dhabi en novembre 2013 au sujet de la gestion des sites culturels du patrimoine mondial de Al-Ain. Ensuite, nous avons entrepris un travail très soutenu pour une meilleure gestion des villes du patrimoine mondial dans la région arabe. Une gestion en grand besoin d'amélioration, et ce à travers la mise en œuvre de la recommandation concernant le paysage urbain historique. Ainsi, nous avons organisé un atelier régional en décembre 2013 à Rabat, au Maroc, sur les enjeux politiques, socio-économiques et culturels du développement des ensembles urbains historiques. Un atelier de formation à Sfax en Tunisie en décembre 2013 sur justement l'utilisation de l'approche centrée sur le paysage urbain historique en amont d'un projet de proposition d'inscription. Nous avons aussi mené un travail approfondi sur les villes et sur le patrimoine moderne. Je dois ajouter que la mise en œuvre du programme régional a dû s'adapter aux exigences de la situation de conflit et post-conflit dans plusieurs pays de la région. Ainsi, un effort très soutenu a été fourni pour le suivi, la préservation et la gestion des biens de la Libye, du Yémen et de l'Égypte, avec une assistance technique persistante et de grands efforts de levée de fonds. Le Centre du patrimoine mondial a travaillé sans relâche sur le suivi des biens de la Syrie, sur la réduction des risques pendant le conflit et la préparation méthodologique de l'après-conflit, travail couronné par le lancement en mars dernier d'un projet de sauvegarde d'urgence du patrimoine culturel syrien et par la réunion internationale d'experts organisée à Paris en mai dernier, de laquelle je vous parlais il y a quelques jours. Nos collègues dans les bureaux hors siège du Caire, de Bagdad, d'Amman, de Tripoli, de Rabat, de Ramallah et de Doha sont également très actifs dans la mise en œuvre du programme régional à travers beaucoup de projets de conservation, de gestion et une liaison très rapprochée avec les États membres sur l'assistance technique au quotidien de la Convention. Enfin, en termes de coopération pour la mise en œuvre du programme régional, le soutien des organisations consultatives et du Centre régional des pays arabes pour le patrimoine mondial établi à Manama, comme centre catégorie 2 sous l'égide de l'UNESCO, a été comme toujours indéfectible. Le centre régional est en effet, en collaboration avec la UCN, en train de faire un travail remarquable pour une meilleure représentativité du patrimoine naturel dans les pays arabes et œuvre à la traduction et à la diffusion des documents de travail en langue arabe. Pour conclure, je voudrais vous informer que dans l'unité des États arabes, nous sommes 2 personnes à mener toutes ces activités, dans une région qui aurait besoin de beaucoup plus, bien entendu. À cet égard, je voudrais remercier le gouvernement de la Turquie pour son soutien, puisque dans une semaine, nous accueillerons dans notre unité un jeune professionnel turc pour 2 ans. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Al-Hassan. We have to now give the floor to Algeria.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, avant que nous n'adoptions le projet de décision qui nous est soumis, je voudrais simplement, là aussi, exprimer toute la gratitude de la délégation algérienne aux efforts du bureau arabe, parce que nous savons bien qu'il est en sous-effectif. Et le secrétariat, bien sûr, qui a mis au point quand même des programmes très intéressants qui répondent aux besoins des pays et aussi les efforts déployés pour faire face aux défis de la période post-conflit dans la plupart des régions. Donc c'est beaucoup. Alors vraiment, on les encourage à poursuivre et nous voudrions là aussi leur exprimer tout notre soutien et toute notre coopération pour l'avenir. Merci.
Thank you very much. Lebanon, you have the floor.
Shukran Sayyidati Raïsa. Non, je voudrais simplement joindre ma voix à celle de l'Algérie pour dire combien le Liban voudrait féliciter et remercier le Centre du patrimoine et en particulier l'unité arabe qui, à 2 personnes, font un travail gigantesque. Merci.
Thank you, Qatar.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة. نود أن نضم صوتنا للجزائر ولبنان في شكر وحدة الدول العربية الأستاذة ندى الحسن وزميلها على هذا العمل الكبير. ولا شك أن هذا القطاع أو هذا القسم يحتاج لعدد أكبر من الموظفين. نأمل إن شاء الله في المستقبل أن يتم يعني زيادة العدد بطريقة أو بأخرى. وشكرا جزيلا على كل هذه الجهود. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I would like to ask the rapporteur if he has received any proposed amendment for this draft decision. Mr. Rapporteur.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No amendments for this draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I therefore declare decision 38-10b.3 adopted. Finally, I would like to invite Mr. Moreno Triana from the World Heritage Center to present to us with regards to Latin America and the Caribbean region. Mr. Moreno Triana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to report on the follow-up activities for the periodic reporting exercise in the Latin America and the Caribbean region. Allow me, Madam Chair, first of all, to recall that the World Heritage Committee, by decision 37-10A, approved the final report of the second cycle of the periodic reporting for the LAC region at its last session. By the same decision, the World Heritage Center, in collaboration with the state parties, the advisory bodies, the Category 2 census, as well as other relevant partners, was asked to develop the regional action plan. Following the request made by the committee, the World Heritage Center established a close and active cooperation in view of the development of the action plan. As a result, a regional meeting was held in Brasilia from 23rd to 25th of April in 2014 to elaborate the 2014-2024 Regional Action Plan for World Heritage in LAC. Focal points from 26 state parties, representatives of the advisory bodies, and the Category 2 Centers for World Heritage, the Lucio Costa Center in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and Zacatecas Center in Mexico, participated in the meeting. This regional meeting was jointly organized by the World Heritage Center, the National Institute for Historic and Artistic Heritage, IFAN, and with the collaboration of the UNESCO office in Brasilia. Allow me, Madam Chair, to express here our gratitude to the Brazilian government for its continuous support in this process. The meeting in Brasilia was a crucial step to create a platform for discussion in order to identify priority lines of action at the regional level and to define specific activities related to conservation, management, capacity building, and regional cooperation. It is important to highlight that this action will be the basis for the sub-regional plans that will be developed in the next month by the state parties. The Regional Action Plan adopted in Brasilia is conceived as a specific agenda of action. Reinforced cooperation and networking were considered by the state parties as fundamental for the implementation of the plan. The adopted plan identified 4 priority challenges in the region, mainly in the fields of education and communication, integrated heritage management, disaster risk management, included climate change adaptation, and sustainable tourism. In addition, the Regional Action Plan identifies some non-exhaustive heritage categories considered particularly relevant for the region: urban heritage, natural sites, cultural landscapes, and archaeological heritage. The outcomes of the meeting also highlighted as a strategy the development of pilot projects to reflect the priorities of the region and to establish good practices in terms of management and conservation of world heritage. This process illustrated the diversity in the needs and situations affecting the management and conservation of world heritage in the region. That is why each of the 3 sub-regions has already started defining the main lines of action of the respective sub-regional action plans to take into account their own specific needs. In this regard, I am glad to inform the distinguished members of the committee that the first meeting to develop the sub-regional action plan for the Caribbean is already scheduled for the second half of 2014 in La Habana, Cuba. This meeting will also take into account the encouraging results obtained by the Caribbean Capacity Building Program. In addition, I am happy to announce that funds are being secured for this purpose thanks to the contribution of the Netherlands Funds in Trust for World Heritage. Finally, Madam Chair, allow me to thank all the state parties, focal points, and site managers in LAC that have participated in the elaboration of the action plan. A special thanks go to the advisory bodies, ICOMOS, ICROM, and IUCN for their active participation in this process and for their continued support to the World Heritage Center in the follow-up of the periodic reporting. The action plan is contained in Annex to Decision 38-10B.4 and is submitted for adoption by the World Heritage Committee. The relevant decision can be found respectively in pages 7 and 8 for the English version and pages 8 and 9 for the French version. Madam Chair, ICOMOS, on behalf of the advisory bodies, has some additional comments to provide to this important activity for the Latin American region. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to take the floor. On behalf of the advisory bodies, we note the importance of the periodic reporting process, not only in providing a snapshot of the implementation of the Convention and the state of conservation in the various regions, but also to point out key positive trends for the conservation and management of World Heritage properties, as well as key areas in which improvements are still needed and capacities need to be developed. In fact, these reports serve as need assessments in order to ensure that regional and global capacity building strategies are aimed at providing states parties and other actors with the necessary tools for better protecting World Heritage properties. The periodic reporting is also an opportunity for us to actively work with Category 2 centers in the definition of their strategic action plans with the possibility of creating synergies and avoiding duplication. In addition, we consider periodic reporting to be one of the most effective means to improve networking and international cooperation, one of the key objectives of the World Heritage Convention. The reports that we have heard from the various regions point out some key areas of improvement in the implementation of the Convention, as well as areas where we need improvement. En el caso de América Latina, y el Caribe, la elaboración del Plan de Acción ha sido un hito importante para atender las tendencias y desafíos que han sido identificados por los Estados parte durante el informe periódico. Hemos identificado de manera conjunta las acciones que son necesarias para trabajar en temas transversales que influyen en el estado de conservación de nuestros sitios patrimonio mundial. Los Estados parte de la región han enfatizado la importancia de ejecutar acciones sostenidas para garantizar la protección del valor universal de los sitios inscritos, la implementación de casos pilotos, como han sido propuestos por Colombia y Brasil, nos van a permitir desarrollar aproximaciones innovadoras y contar con ejemplos tangibles donde la conservación y la gestión de los bienes inscritos contribuyan de manera específica al desarrollo sostenible. Para los organismos consultivos es fundamental continuar con estas acciones y seguir apoyando directamente a los gestores del sitio y a los Estados parte en los retos que enfrentan día a día en la implementación de la Convención. Hemos visto en esta sesión del Comité cómo casos como Humberstone o el Capañam nos muestran los beneficios de unir esfuerzos en pro de la conservación. Seguiremos trabajando en el fortalecimiento de este diálogo a través de las oficinas del Programa del Patrimonio Mundial, los miembros y comisiones de las oficinas regionales de la IUCN, los programas y actividades regionales del ICROM y el Programa de Patrimonio Mundial y las redes profesionales del Comité Científico del ICOMOS. El Plan de Acción para América Latina y el Caribe nos permite incrementar sinergias y fomentar una mayor articulación para la ejecución de acciones prioritarias y estratégicas, diseñadas por y para la región. Esperamos que la colaboración y el trabajo estratégico nos permita llegar a un momento donde a través de la inversión sostenida en la creación de capacidades, en compartir el conocimiento y el saber hacer entre profesionales y comunidades, podamos caminar como región convincentemente hacia el objetivo principal de la Convención, la conservación de sitios que tienen un valor universal excepcional. Como región queremos alcanzar condiciones donde la conservación y la protección del patrimonio mundial contribuyan al desarrollo sostenible, donde los bienes sean la vía para mejorar las condiciones y la calidad de vida y donde continuemos trabajando en la construcción de un mundo más justo. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Primero, agradecer todo el trabajo de la Secretaría de Apoyo y de ICOMOS para el desarrollo de esta estrategia que es fundamental. Efectivamente, resaltamos la importancia de la reunión que tuvimos en Brasil en la definición del plan de acción y en las prioridades identificadas, así como en la necesidad de implementar los compromisos necesarios para el cumplimiento del plan en cada estado y en la región. En este sentido, es importante subrayar el llamado a los estados partes de otras regiones en el sentido de apoyar los esfuerzos de la región de América Latina y del Caribe para la implementación de este plan de acción en el espíritu de cooperación que refleja la Convención. Gracias.
Thank you. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We wish to thank the World Heritage Center for its support of World Heritage initiatives in LAC. We are at an interesting crossroads in the development of our heritage in the LAC region. There are challenges, and we still do not have the kind of presence we would want in World Heritage, but this requires a process, and the steps have been bold, strategic, and forward-thinking. Regional cooperation, particularly within the Caribbean sub-region, has never been as robust, and governments and other stakeholders are becoming proactive in conservation and safeguarding initiatives. We recognize that regional cooperation is critical and will bring greater strength to individual country programs. The Phillipsburg Declaration and Action Plan, recognizing the position and commitment of 17 island states in lobbying for and effecting capacity building in World Heritage, as well as the Caribbean Action Plan for World Heritage in LAC 2014 to 2024, are model examples of this outlook. Madam Chair, it is with pride and promise that we celebrate the International Year of Small Island Developing States in 2014. And at the heart of this year's observance we are encouraged by the united front that is unfolding in the region in support of World Heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barbados, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Barbados would like to join with the World Heritage Center, ECOMOS, and the other advisory bodies, as well as the state parties who spoke on this issue, to commend the World Heritage Center, and more specifically the Latin American unit and the government of Brazil for hosting the last meeting in April for the preparation of the action plan for the Caribbean. Sorry, the action plan for Latin America and the Caribbean. Madam Chair, more specifically, the Caribbean sub-region is in an area which is characterized by high climatic vulnerability, where we are susceptible to earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions. And we have identified disaster risk reduction as one of the major actions that we need to address. Also, tourism is a major economic driver for the majority of our economies, and the need for sustainable tourism is very relevant. And that's another action that has been identified in the plan from 2014 to 2024. Madam Chair, the Category 2 centers which currently operate in Latin America and the Caribbean, in Brazil and Zacatecas in Mexico, they have performed outstandingly well. And in the Caribbean region, we feel that there is also need for a Category 2 center, especially to further develop World Heritage and SIDS. And I'm not speaking only of Caribbean SIDS, I'm speaking of all SIDS. And we think that the work which can be done at this Category 2 center will further enhance and strengthen the convention in the region, as well as research on SIDS. And in closing, Madam Chair, in this, the 20th year of the slave route, of the UNESCO slave route project, significant work has been undertaken in this area, and we do expect that the Category 2 Center will further advance this work so that one day in the not too distant future, the sub-region of the Caribbean will be able to bring that nomination before this August body for inscription. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that being said, I would like to adopt the last and fourth draft decision 38Com10B.4 included in section 4 part B of document 10B in front of you. Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any proposed amendment for this draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. And for this draft decision, we have received amendments from the distinguished delegation of Jamaica, mainly adding a few lines at the end of paragraph number 5, as well as a clarification in paragraph number 7. So Jamaica is proposing to add at the end of paragraph number 5, reading as follows, which reflects regional priorities to include, but not limited to, education and public awareness, disaster risk management, integrated heritage management, and sustainable tourism in World Heritage properties. And then in paragraph number 7, a clarification as well at the end, after reading as follows, based on the action plan and taking into consideration and building upon the achievements of the previous plan with a focus on the specific needs of each subregion. So those are the amendments so far, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I also note that there is an intervention request from Cuba. Cuba, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Realmente la intervención era previa a la presentación de la decisión. Solamente queríamos, en primer lugar, agradecer a todos los actores que contribuyeron a la realización de este plan de acción para América Latina, es decir, el Centro de Patrimonio Mundial, los órganos consultivos, así como los centros de categoría 2 en la región que cada día adquieren mayor protagonismo en la definición de las acciones y el fundamento de su creación. Creo que es importante destacar que este plan de acción tuvo como sustento de su estrategia la cooperación, es decir, la cooperación vista en un contexto para la región muy favorable en términos sociopolíticos y económicos, y que también lo puede ser para lograr mejores resultados en el ámbito de la conservación del patrimonio cultural. Creo que la aprobación en esta sesión del Comité del Camino Andino, el Capañán, es una muestra fehaciente de lo mucho que la región puede hacer en términos de cooperación entre los Estados partes, con la ayuda de los demás Estados partes de todo el mundo y, por supuesto, con la asistencia, el apoyo sostenido del Centro de Patrimonio Mundial, los órganos consultivos y, por supuesto, que de este respetable comité. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that you were given the floor after what the rapporteur read. With that being said, Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any more amendments?
Thanks, Madam Chair. No more amendments, so you can proceed for the adoption. Thank you.
Are there any objections to the amendments proposed? I see none. I therefore declare decision 38 COM 10B.4 adopted as amended. Dear colleagues, item 10 of our agenda is now closed. We will move on to item 11, devoted to the international assistance. And to this end, I would like to invite you to pay attention to document 11. I will now invite Mr. Dubonnet from the World Heritage Center to introduce the item. Mr. Dubonnet, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Donc le document de travail est le document 38 COM 11. Ce document est divisé en deux parties. Dans la première partie, vous trouverez une mise à jour concernant les 3 demandes d'assistance internationale qui étaient à l'origine soumises pour décision du comité. Elles ont été toutes recommandées pour non-approbation par le panel qui s'est retenu en janvier 2014 et elles ont été tous les 3 retirées par les États parties concernés fin avril 2014. Dans la deuxième partie du document, vous trouverez l'état du budget de l'assistance internationale pour l'exercice biennal 2014-2015 à la date du 15 mai 2014. Et finalement, en annexe du document, on peut trouver la liste des demandes d'assistance internationale approuvées lors de l'exercice biennal 2014-2015 à la date du 15 mai 2014, ainsi que la liste finale des demandes d'assistance internationale approuvées lors de l'exercice biennal précédent 2012-2013. Je souhaiterais attirer votre attention sur la partie 2 du document qui montre l'état actuel du budget de l'assistance internationale en 2014-2015. Et je voudrais noter un certain nombre d'éléments. Depuis l'élaboration du document, 7 autres demandes ont été approuvées pour la Côte d'Ivoire, le Lesotho, le Rwanda, le Sénégal, la Tanzanie, le Yémen et le Paraguay, ce qui porte le nombre de demandes approuvées à 21. Une 8e demande de Madagascar est en attente du paiement des arriérés de ses contributions sur 2013 avant de pouvoir être soumise à la décision de la présidente. Par conséquent, les fonds disponibles pour 2015 s'élèvent maintenant à 320 000 963, à savoir 144 979 $ sur le budget de l'assistance internationale, 175 934 $ sur les fonds finlandais affectés à l'assistance internationale, 50 $ sur les fonds coréens affectés à l'assistance internationale, et puis les fonds italiens et fonds indiens, ainsi que les fonds de partenariat qui étaient affectés à l'assistance internationale sont maintenant totalement épuisés. Je voudrais juste brièvement expliquer le... Non, si vous pouvez aller en avant, le diapo avant. Oui. Donc, je voudrais juste brièvement expliquer ce diapo qui montre l'évolution du budget de l'assistance internationale dans les derniers bienniats. Et la partie en bleu, c'est la partie qui est attribuée par le Fonds du patrimoine mondial. Et puis les autres couleurs sont les fonds reçus sur base volontaire d'autres pays que, comme j'avais mentionné, donc l'Italie, l'Inde, la Corée, le Finlande, ainsi que les fonds qui ont été mobilisés à travers l'unité des partenariats. Et je pense que ce diapo montre bien que le budget disponible est en diminution et aussi montre les nombres d'approbations par rapport au budget disponible lors des différents bienniats. Alors si on peut aller au slide suivant. Alors sur cette deuxième diapo qui montre en vert ce qui reste disponible sous les différentes catégories de l'assistance internationale sur base des fonds en provenance du Fonds du patrimoine mondial, on peut voir qu'il reste presque plus de fonds disponibles sur l'assistance préparatoire pour 2015, avec seulement $10 893 sous la catégorie assistance préparatoire pour les sites patrimoine naturel et rien disponible pour l'assistance préparatoire pour la culture. En ce qui concerne les fonds pour l'assistance conservation et gestion, pour la culture, il reste aussi quasiment plus de fonds. Il reste $10 893. Alors pour le budget pour le patrimoine mondial naturel, en termes de conservation et gestion, il est intact, mais ceci est seulement dû à cause du fait que nous avons pu utiliser les fonds en provenance de la Finlande, parce que ceux-ci étaient affectés aux demandes relevant du patrimoine naturel et mixte. Et à cause de ça, cela va permettre l'utilisation des $115 500 restants qui sont disponibles sur le budget conservation et gestion nature pour les demandes aussi relevant du patrimoine culturel, ainsi que le prévoit le paragraphe 240 des orientations. Les fonds additionnels reçus jusqu'à présent ont permis les approbations d'un montant annuel de $118 400 depuis 2010. Et si on peut aller au diapo suivant. Il faut également noter qu'en dépit de ces fonds additionnels, une demande a dû être rejetée par le manque de fonds en 2014 et bien sûr cette demande pourrait être resoumise en 2015 si l'État partie la souhaite, mais uniquement si nous avons des fonds additionnels puisque les fonds de l'assistance préparatoire sont déjà quasiment épuisés. Je pense que c'est aussi intéressant de noter que si on n'avait pas eu de fonds additionnels en 2014, nous aurions pu soumettre pour approbation à peu près le même nombre de demandes sur le budget courant de l'assistance internationale, mais nous aurions dû rejeter 6 demandes à cause de manque de fonds. Donc je pense que ça montre la situation critique dans laquelle se trouve le budget pour l'assistance internationale, qui était un des objectifs de base de cette convention. Le projet de décision 38,11, vous pouvez le trouver sur la page 3 de votre document. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or interventions to be made by committee members? Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments with regards to this draft decision?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No amendments for this draft decision. But there is a delegation.
Algeria, you have the floor.
Oui, Madame la Présidente. Juste pour exprimer quand même une profonde préoccupation par rapport à la situation budgétaire de l'organisation. Sincèrement, elle est très préoccupante. Surtout lorsqu'on a entendu l'excellente présentation d'ailleurs qui a été faite par le secrétariat. Nous estimons qu'il faut qu'on trouve des moyens qui pourraient aider à remédier à cette situation ou des demandes d'assistance ou des demandes pour la conservation de biens, etc., ont même dû être rejetées. C'est quand même très préoccupant. Et j'en appelle à travers vous à tous les membres du comité, même aux États parties d'ailleurs, à nous pencher très sérieusement sur la question, faute de quoi on pourrait se trouver devant ou face à une situation qui engendrerait des conséquences assez sérieuses sur la crédibilité des travaux du comité. Donc je n'ai pas quelque chose de concret, Madame la Présidente, malheureusement, à proposer à ce stade de nos travaux, mais j'aimerais à travers vous simplement tirer cette sonnette d'alarme. Que faisons-nous? Il faut bien qu'on se penche sur cette question, et elle est sérieuse. Merci.
Thank you, distinguished colleague from Algeria. I now give the floor to Mr. Rao.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and many thanks to the distinguished delegate of Algeria for her comment. This is a matter which will come up again in the next item on the budget, which will be presented by the chairperson of the budget working group. And indeed, if you have seen the appeals that have been made both by the committee in its previous session as well as by the General Assembly at its last session, the sustainability of the World Heritage Fund is really in question, because the amount of compulsory assessed contributions by states parties to the convention is almost fixed. So the size of the World Heritage Fund is not going to grow, whereas the demands on the fund are growing. And that is why the General Assembly had created a sub-account of the World Heritage Fund, whereby the states parties were invited to make voluntary contributions. And as you might have heard from the report, there have been contributions from Korea, India, Italy, Finland in the past. So that is the only way by which the size of the World Heritage Fund can grow, which is by voluntary contributions by states parties. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I see no more requests for comments or interventions. I will therefore adopt draft decision 38-11 is adopted. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I now declare item 11 closed. Oh.
It's okay.
Did you see something? Would I kindly request that the budget chairperson come to the podium in order to present? This item 12, as mentioned, is devoted to the presentation of the final accounts of the World Heritage Fund for 2012-2013, the interim financial statement and the statement of implementations of the 2014-2015 budget, which are contained in document 12. As you recall, a working group examined this item. This working group was chaired by Anne Hahtemaki from the delegation of Finland. I would like to first of all pay tribute to the work of Hahtemaki, and on behalf of the committee thank her for all her work. I know that this task was not an easy one, and that you spared no effort in accomplishing your work. I understand that a draft decision is proposed by the working group. This draft decision has been distributed in the room. I now give the floor to the chairperson of the working group to present the conclusion of the group. Please, Madame Hahtemaki, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the pleasure to introduce the draft decision on the budget, which was formulated by consensus by the Budget Working Group. The document was distributed yesterday. Just to recall, item 12 was opened in the plenary last Monday, 16th of June, and as you may know, the Budget Working Group was established as a standing consultative body to review the biennial budget of the World Heritage Fund, as per the committee's decision taken at its 35th session. The budget group held 5 sessions from Tuesday to Sunday, 17th to 22nd June, to examine the document of item 12 and to work on the draft decision contained in it. The sessions of the Budget Working Group were attended by 25 state parties, among which 12 are members of the World Heritage Committee. Observers, the advisory bodies and the Secretariat participated as well. And here, I wish to thank you, Madam Chair, for your kind support in mobilizing state parties to participate in the working group. For the first time since long, the budget working group benefited from the presence of the Chief Financial Officer of UNESCO, Mrs. Nutan Wozencroft, who presented the full cost budgeting and the cost recovery policy. Her participation was most useful. Madam Chair, I'm pleased to report back to the plenary the content of our debates. Please allow me to briefly highlight some of the main issues and conclusions which are reflected in this decision before the committee takes it up for adoption. The main issue discussed by the budget working group related to the sustainability of the World Heritage Fund. It is necessary to urgently achieve the sustainability of the fund, as the members of the working group emphasized. The difficult financing situation has affected the ability to provide for activities related to the convention, especially conservation and management of properties, which is a top priority. At the same time, as state parties continue to present more and more nominations for World Heritage sites, this results in more work being requested from the World Heritage Center and advisory bodies. Members expressed their concern on the impact of non-payment of assessed contributions for the program delivery, although there was an understanding that this alone would not solve the problem of the sustainability of the World Heritage Fund. Members reminded how important it is that the states pay timely their assessed contributions. The budget working group also discussed how to increase voluntary contributions to the World Heritage Fund and its sub-accounts, including the options recommended by the General Assembly at its 19th session for voluntary contributions. State parties are strongly encouraged to voluntarily contribute to the sub-accounts of the World Heritage Fund, especially international assistance, and the sub-account for enhancing the human capacities of the World Heritage Center. In addition, as already presented in the last year's committee decision, state parties are encouraged to contribute by choosing among the several options of additional financing. Concern was also expressed at the worsened staffing situation of the World Heritage Center, especially the expertise of natural heritage. The center is under increasing pressure to do more work with fewer staff members. The working group also discussed the funding of advisory missions through the World Heritage Fund by the creation of a new budget line and through international assistance mechanism. And the group also discussed how to mobilize resources as well as the partnerships, possibilities to focus them on conservation, and how to make better use of the World Heritage brand. Madam Chair, the discussions were most fruitful, and the budget working group came to a consensus on the draft decision, which is now submitted to the plenary. Although the draft decision is fairly long, thanks to the work of the budget working group of last year, this working group was also able to draw much on its work. Looking forward and considering the importance of the sustainability of the fund, the working group concluded that more consultation would be needed and the dialogue should continue so that measures could be presented to the 20th session of the General Assembly in 2015. The Secretariat and the advisory bodies are called upon to propose, in consultation with the states parties, for the consideration of the committee at its 39th session, a comparative analysis of options for further efficiency and cost-saving measures and resource mobilization that could contribute to the sustainability of the fund. Your proposals, colleagues from states parties, can greatly help in producing this analysis. it is understood that more sustainable funding needs to be secured and that even further measures of efficiency, cuts on activities, and prioritization of the workload need to be considered. At the same time, it is also essential that when the World Heritage Committee is taking decisions, it carefully identifies and considers the costs of its decisions, as they have a substantial impact on the finances of the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies. Madam Chair, I would like to thank all the delegates, experts, the advisory bodies, and the World Heritage Center for their excellent cooperation and valuable contributions, as well as for the dialogue and good atmosphere in which we were able to conduct our work. I would also like to thank the host country, Qatar, for the professional facilities and support personnel which it made available to the budget working group and which very much facilitated our work. On behalf of the budget working group, I wish to submit the draft decision you have in front of you for the committee's consideration and adoption. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much on your presentation, Mrs. Huhtamaki. I would like to know if there are any comments to be made with regard to the draft decision in front of you. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just like to comment on the presentation made. The Philippines thanks the distinguished representative of Finland for her report and for ably chairing the budget working group. We wish to underscore the urgency with which the committee and all state parties must address the financial situation and the need to ensure the sustainability of the World Heritage Fund with the ever-increasing demands made on all bodies in the implementation of the convention. We support the draft decision prepared by the working group as it reiterates this important message and requests the Secretary to provide a comparative analysis of options in consultation with state parties for consideration of the 39th session. In this connection, we would suggest continuing dialogue on budgetary issues in between committee sessions, perhaps through Paris-based delegations, with a view to finding lasting and comprehensive solutions to the budgetary challenges we face. We also wish to note that the last committee session, Decision 37, Com 15, that one was adopted, which states in para 22 that future decisions presented for the committee's approval that have financial implications not provided for in the approved budget be clearly identified and reflected in the relevant decisions of the committee upon adoption. We would like to inquire with the Secretariat on how this provision is being implemented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I give the floor to the Secretariat to respond to the intervention made by the Philippines. But before that, I see that the Senegal would like to take. No, they don't. Okay, so Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We will indeed be presenting at the time of the adoption of the report tomorrow afternoon a statement clearly identifying the cost of the decisions that you have taken, the budget available, and what the shortfall will be in terms of the resources available. So that will be provided to you tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. With that being said, Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments with regards to the draft decision being discussed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have received no amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no more interventions or comments to be made, I would like to declare the draft decision 38, Com 12 adopted. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will now move on to item 13 on the agenda, which is related to other businesses. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Rao, who would like to inform you on one particular item regarding the follow-up of the resolution 37C-96 of the General Conference, which concerns the governance of the UNESCO intergovernmental bodies. Mr. Rao, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and I would like to recall that this item has been discussed a couple of times in the Bureau, in the first meeting of the Bureau yesterday and today morning as well. This item, which I would like to bring to the notice of the committee members, relates to a decision of the UNESCO General Conference, which required the UNESCO external auditor to carry out a strategic performance review of all governing bodies of UNESCO. And obviously governing bodies of all the conventions are part of that strategic performance review. Now, in order to carry out this review, the external auditor has sent out questionnaires to the chairpersons, presidents of all the governing bodies. And the timelines for having these completed questionnaires returned to the external auditor have been also established. The deadline is the 2nd of September 2014. We raised this matter in the Bureau because of the complexity of the exercise. The requirement is for each governing body to respond to the external auditor, which means that there will be one response from the president or chairperson of the governing body, in this case the World Heritage Committee. But obviously it will require inputs from all the committee members. Therefore, we had circulated the questionnaire to all the Bureau members yesterday, and it was decided that the Secretariat sends out the questionnaires to all the committee members. Once the questionnaires are available to all the committee members, they would consult with the Bureau members, their regional representatives, the vice chairs on the Bureau, and complete the questionnaire for each of the regions, and then send them on to the chairperson's secretariat. The chairperson would then consolidate these responses and send one consolidated, completed questionnaire, part 1 and part 2, back to the external auditor. The role of the Secretariat is limited. The World Heritage Center will only provide to the chairperson secretariat factual information relating to budgetary matters, staffing matters, number of meetings held and so on. Because this is a performance review of the governing bodies, this is a matter directly between the external auditor and the governing bodies, and that's why the role of the Secretariat is that only of a facilitator and provider of factual information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rao. Are there any comments to be made? I see no more comments or requests for intervention. I therefore would like to pass on to item 4. Sorry? The rapporteur has something to say. Mr. Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. And indeed, it's just to comment that we have received a proposal, a draft decision proposed by the distinguished delegation of India in reference to other businesses. So with your permission, I will, well, it is already on the screens, and probably through you, Madam Chairperson, we can kindly ask the delegation of India if they can explain us what is this proposed about. So I just wanted to point this out, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rapporteur. Are there any more comments? India, would you like to explain further? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make 3 brief points before you open up the discussion to the others. We have indeed moved a draft decision this morning, but this has been moved after taking into account the actual discussions that took place during this 38th session of the World Heritage Committee, and after also consulting the other members of the World Heritage Committee. The draft decision we feel is positive, constructive, and progressive, seeking to optimize future decision-making by the World Heritage Committee. The second point that I would wish to make is that the objective of this decision is not to fault-find, but actually to acknowledge the role that is being played, played by the advisory bodies. They are indeed doing a difficult job. It's not a simple task, but also to further streamline their working, because as we discovered during the course of this committee, there are certain factual errors that have crept into their working, not just this year, but maybe also in the past, and to see how we can open up the dialogue, the consultation with them, not just with some states parties, as we discovered, but with all states parties, so that we can have a more open and transparent system. And the last and final point that I would wish to make is that in presenting this decision is not India's. This decision will be owned, I hope, by all of us, and as I said, with the objective to further improve the working methods of the very important work that we do in the World Heritage Committee. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleague from India. I now give the floor to the Senegal.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, en écho à l'intervention de l'Inde, je voudrais effectivement dire que lors des travaux du comité, nous nous sommes souvent interrogés sur les méthodes de travail des organes consultatifs. Nous avons évoqué souvent la question de la crédibilité. Nous avons également parlé de la politisation croissante du comité. Alors, autour de ces points, je voudrais je voudrais partager quelques réflexions avec vous. C'est vrai qu'il y a une nécessité de transparence accrue parce que les États s'interrogent effectivement sur le contenu des évaluations, sur le dialogue, parce que nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'il y avait un problème de communication, j'allais dire, entre certains États et certains organismes, certains organes consultatifs. Nous ne voudrions pas qu'il y ait double jeu ou double détente. Nous voudrions qu'il y ait une universalité dans les procédures, en toutefois respectant, surtout dans le domaine culturel, les particularismes. Nous avons eu certaines interventions sur la nécessaire sensibilité qu'il fallait avoir par rapport au patrimoine immatériel, à certains aspects culturels. Certains États ici ont dit qu'il était important que les experts aient une sensibilité par rapport à la région dans laquelle ils intervenaient. Et tout cela, je pense, fait un tout qui fait que nous devons approfondir notre réflexion sur nos interactions avec les organes consultatifs. Et par ailleurs, nous nous devons de préserver la crédibilité du comité. Et pour ce faire, il faut que nous renforcions les organismes consultatifs. Et les renforcer, c'est quoi? C'est qu'ils nous présentent les meilleurs dossiers possibles, avec la plus grande équité possible, de sorte que nous, comités, nous ne soyons pas obligés, comme nous le sommes parfois, à passer outre, à passer, certains diraient, en force, parce que nous considérons que nous n'avons pas été pris en compte avec suffisamment d'attention. Je crois que c'est l'objet, quelque part, de cette résolution et nous voudrions, pour terminer, la soutenir. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Kazakhstan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. During this session, it came to notice that in few cases the advisor bodies seem not to have requested additional information from all state parties concerned in the course of evaluation of their nominations. Therefore, we'd like to support the draft decision submitted by India, which I think will contribute to better dialogue between advisory bodies and the state parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleague from Kazakhstan. Now I give the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, we understand that there are much to improve in this nomination process. And so I would like to have some discussion on this matter. So rather than simply calling upon the advisory body to consult and dialogue with all state parties, I think it's better to have a comprehensive discussion on a broader issues concerning the nomination. So Japan would like to propose to establish a working group as a standing consultative body of the committee in order to examine how best we can improve the process. And for that, I'd like to make some changes. First of all, I'd like to put new paragraph 3, which reads as taking into account the amount of work assigned to the advisory bodies and the effort required to complete it.
Could you just start from the beginning and read
Okay.
slowly, please? Thank you.
Taking into account the amount of work assigned to the advisory bodies and the efforts required to complete it within a limited time frame. And also, I'd like to delete increasing from the paragraph 4 because I actually don't know that trend. And also, I'd like to have paragraph 5, 6.6, also establish a working group as a standing consultative body, of the committee in order to examine the issues, including the above observed during the evaluation and decision-making process of nomination during the 38th session of the World Heritage Committee, 38th, to formulate its recommendations thereon and to report to the 39th session of the committee. Because I understand, this is the end of the proposal, but because I understand many ideas have been expressed, for example, prolong the time frame for the examination, or to have some kind of intermediate evaluation, or even I mentioned in my own statement that the upstream process is after the nomination, but it could go up even before the nomination, I mean about the tentative list stage. So including all that, I hope to have a more thorough discussion among us, of course including World Heritage Committee and the advisory bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Japan, but I think there needs to be a clarification made from the Secretariat with regards to your paragraph 6. I don't know if Mr. Rao or Rapporteur would like to take the floor. Mr. Rao.
I just had a comment, Madam Chair. The session is ending, the 38th session. We are establishing maybe this consultative body, but it will not have enough opportunity to work. What is the intention? Is it to work intersessionally between this and the 39th session for this consultative body to meet and complete its work so that it can report to the 39th session? I really don't know how to proceed on this matter. And the rapporteur, I think, has pointed out that he was not able to capture the full decision there. So if it could kindly be repeated. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Sorry, that is a proposal. What I mentioned afterwards is just a simple explanation. And what I would like to do is to start discussion now without waiting for the next committee in 1 year time, because we have much to do. And of course, we cannot reflect that result to the next session, but at least maybe, I'm not quite sure about the procedures, but if that official standing committee is impossible, why not to have some kind of informal working group or to start discussion?
Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before the other delegations take the floor, it's just a kindly request to the distinguished Ambassador of Japan, because I think that in the last part of the new paragraph 6, as you're proposing, we missed just a few words. Thank you, Ambassador.
To formulate its recommendations thereon. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rapporteur. Jamaica, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamaica supports the draft proposal presented by India and would also like to support the amendment in paragraph 3 and 4 by Japan. With question 6, because we're not too clear on the timing that we have right now, we would also like to stress or emphasize that significant engagement must take place on the ground between state parties and the advisory bodies. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi d'abord d'exprimer notre gratitude à l'Inde pour le projet son projet en tout cas de décision. Nous le soutenons, ainsi que ce qui a été proposé par notre collègue du Japon. Je voudrais à mon tour proposer un 3 bis. Et je le propose en ayant à l'esprit ce que nous avons connu et qui sont d'ailleurs des choses un peu récurrentes. Permettez-moi de le lire à vitesse de dictée pour qu'il puisse être reflété. Ayant à l'esprit les divergences de points de vue récurrents sur les questions de caractère scientifique. D'ordre scientifique ou de caractère scientifique, je ne sais pas quelle est la meilleure. Mais enfin, c'est sur ces questions-là en particulier. Et à ce moment-là, j'irai là aussi à un paragraphe, soit 7 bis ou 6 bis, c'est comme vous le souhaitez. Ce serait la partie opérationnelle, et qui dirait ce qui suit. Envisage la mise en place d'un mécanisme de recours, afin de fournir un avis scientifique indépendant qui permettra d'aider, ou alors devant permettre d'aider à la prise de décision. Je me permets simplement, Madame la Présidente, en proposant ce libellé, de rappeler à mes collègues que cela a déjà été fait dans le cas, comme je l'ai dit hier d'ailleurs, dans le cas du parc de Kakadu, qui avait été présenté par l'Australie en 1998. Je pense que ça serait une bonne chose que l'on ait ce type de mécanisme pour aider à une bonne prise de décision. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Lebanon, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Well, coming to the amendment, Lebanon would like to support paragraphs 4, 5, etc. Concerning paragraph 8 that comes to, or 7, no, paragraph 8, yeah. Please, could you come to paragraph 8? Yeah. Also, or 6, I don't know how it is. It's 6 in French, it's 6 in English, it's 8 in, I'm sorry, it's 6 in English, it's 8 in French. Well, I propose in English that the paragraph becomes this way. Also establishes an open-ended working group composed of one representative of each regional group as a standing consultative body of the committee in order to consult, no, not examine, consult before examine, please. Could you put consult before the word examine? Yeah. In order to consult with advisory bodies commun, examine the issues related to the evaluation and decision-making process of nomination. And then you remove everything till the World Heritage Committee. Yeah, this is removed. To formulate its recommendations thereon and to report to the 39th session of the committee. The idea is that this open-ended working group will be composed of one representative of each regional group in order not to have a huge group that will meet in Paris during this session and the next session of the committee. Consult with advisory bodies, present its recommendation to the next session. Then, concerning the 5 bis proposed by Algeria, I don't think it is the place where it should be put. First of all, I think that such a decision is too early. We should review the whole process, and then we don't have money, because if each time a state party has a deferral and asks for another independent scientific opinion, we'll have to pay, and we don't have money to pay.
Thank you very much. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Vietnam comprend les efforts des organisations internationales, le processus d'évaluation, parce qu'il s'agit d'une évaluation scientifique. Nous appuyons donc la proposition des pays précédents concernant le paragraphe 3, en tenant compte de la charge de travail habituée, et également nous demandons un dialogue plus soutenu entre les organisations consultatives et les parties, stade parties, les États parties. Donc, dans ce cas, la proposition du Liban est juste. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Vietnam. Germany, you have the floor.
Germany? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, I hope that everyone in the room is aware that Germany is always watching carefully the work of the advisory bodies, and we do not hesitate to criticize them if necessary. On the other hand, I would like to express our thanks to the advisory body for the work which they have been doing, and we think their work is essential, especially in regard to the conservation of the listed sites, the evaluation of nominated properties, and the capacity building. On the other hand, I think I've said that also during our debate on the nominations, we have also, I think, to have a look. We have to have a look on the advisory bodies, but also on ourselves. We have to apply the rules of the game as they are, and should have a critical look at our work too. So in this spirit, I would like to make 2 more amendments. First of all, I would like to say we are fine with the Japanese amendments and with the as amended by Lebanon. Yeah, so we can go along with the para 6 as amended by Lebanon. The only thing we would like to change here, it should be an ad hoc working group, which is not working.
It is done in the meantime.
Huh?
Okay. It is done in the meantime.
It's done.
Open-ended.
Okay. And if we can go up a little bit, para 3.
It's a new form. It's a new form.
Yes, 3 bis we cannot agree with. should be deleted. In the para 4, we would like to add after factual errors and differences of opinion, because indeed many of the replies by states parties are differences of opinion. And then we would like to propose a new para, it would be 5 then, new 5, and the rest would be 6, 7, and so on. So, which reads as follows: underline that a consistent application of rules para 159 and 160 concerning deferral. Okay. And referral is essential for the credibility of the decision-making of the World Heritage Committee.
Und der neue, der 6 bis muss raus, wie Libanon und Vietnam vorgeschlagen haben.
Yes. Yes. And old 5 bis, I mean, in number 6, there's a 5 bis, should be deleted. Huh?
In line with the Lebanon.
Yes, in line with the Lebanon, exactly, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Germany. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I thank the state parties who have made proposals for a very pertinent issue being raised in this committee. In principle, Turkish delegation agrees with the proposals by India, Japan and Germany, but we would like to clarify a number of points. In paragraph 6, Madam Chair, when we were talking about an open-ended working group, the participation in this working group should not be dictated to the state parties, but the group's composition should be in line with the desires of the state parties. That means whoever wishes to participate should have the right to. So I would rather have the initial formulation instead of having one representative from each group. I would like to propose 3 paragraphs under paragraph 2. Number 1 is appreciative of the high level of expertise and selfless work carried out by advice.
Can you just hold on? Are we ready to take? Turkey is proposing 3 new paragraphs. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Appreciative of the high level of expertise and selfless work carried out.
Turkey, could you please read it very slowly?
Sure.
Thank you.
Appreciative of the high level of expertise and selfless work carried out by advisory bodies to meet World Heritage Committee's expanding needs. New 5, realizing that.
We have an intervention from the rapporteur. You have the floor.
Thank you. Ambassador, just a quick question. This new paragraph that you have proposed in the end,
yes,
you would like it will be the new 2?
Yes, new paragraph 5, I'm continuing. This is new 4. Well, we will place it. It should be after 2 or 3, okay. Mr. Rapporteur.
Thank you. With that, distinguished colleague from Turkey, you may continue.
Yes. Realizing that the growing number of nominations and inscriptions to the World Heritage List has increased not only the workload, but also the financial burdens faced by advisory bodies. And then the third and last proposed paragraph, conscious of the ample need by a significant number of state parties who are in need of technical assistance and support in the preparation of nominations as well as during the inscription process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Finland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to support what was proposed, I think, into the new para 5 by Germany, if the numbers are as... Yes, so I think it's number 6 now. Yeah. Anyway, I would like to support the paragraph proposed by Germany with regard to bearing in mind that it is the diverging issues and consistent application of rules. So that is number 8. And for Finland's part, we would also like to ask for including a new paragraph with regard to the governance review asked by the external auditor. So I would suggest that into the beginning of the resolution, the decision text, I would say that this would go very well into as a new paragraph 6, calls upon the Bureau of the committee to provide answers in consultation with the state parties to the external auditor's questionnaire regarding to governance review of the committee's work and its efficiency. Yes, I can repeat it. A new paragraph for paragraph 6 calls upon the Bureau of the committee to provide answers in consultation with state parties to the external auditor's questionnaire regarding the governance review of the committee's work and its efficiency. And just as a comment to this, this questionnaire is also, it is aimed at looking at the committee's own view on the possibilities of enhancing the efficiency of its work. And I also understand that the chair and the Bureau have already considered how to answer this. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Finland, Senegal, you have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, à ce stade, je dois dire que je commence à être un tout petit peu confuse avec tous ces amendements. Donc, je voudrais appeler votre indulgence pour demander qu'on me remette le projet de décision au début et que je puisse essayer de procéder très rapidement. Au début, j'avais juste un petit problème, une petite question de traduction. Mais forcément, par la force des choses, les choses se rajoutant les unes aux autres, ça devient un tout petit peu plus difficile. Puis-je avoir dans la version française, le début, la version française? Merci. Alors, donc, voilà. Je me vois obligée donc de réagir peut-être d'abord sur le nouveau 3. Et le nouveau 4. Donc, j'aurais voulu juste un éclaircissement, mais ça peut-être que l'ambassadeur de Turquie me le donnera volontiers, sur le qualificatif altruiste qu'il a ajouté pour le travail des organisations consultatives. J'ai l'impression que le nombre croissant, donc le nouveau 4, a été déjà pris en compte dans l'un des paragraphes dont je ne peux plus avoir le numéro. J'ai l'impression qu'il y a eu beaucoup de redites dans les différents amendements. Je pense que le rapporteur ne fera certainement une proposition de synthèse. Donc, voilà. Le 6, mon problème de traduction se trouvait au niveau du 6 actuel. Donc, ce serait plutôt en français, tenant compte, on peut enlever le « en », donc tenant compte de la charge de travail affectée aux organisations consultatives et des efforts nécessaires pour mener à bien ce travail dans des échéances limitées. Donc, pour ce qui est devenu le nouveau 7, nous souhaiterions effectivement qu'on le supprime parce que je pense que lorsque nous prenons en compte les différences d'opinion ainsi que les erreurs factuelles, nous sommes dans un environnement plus global et nous n'avons pas besoin d'aller au point parce qu'à ce moment-là, nous entrerions dans le détail de tout ce qui devrait faire l'objet du mandat du groupe et qu'on pourrait voir peut-être ultérieurement. Donc, pour ce qui devient le 7, en juin, le bureau, je crois que le bureau a déjà pris les décisions qu'il fallait par rapport aux réponses en consultation avec les États partis, mais si la Finlande tient absolument à maintenir ce point, bon, on ne sera pas contre, mais je crois que ça a été pris en compte avant. Et donc, voilà, pour le nouveau 9, je crois que on est également dans une perspective plus globale. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de différer de renvoi, il s'agit aussi d'inscription, de non-inscription. Donc je pense que si nous pouvions laisser plus globalement l'esprit de la décision et voir ensuite le détail, puisque nous allons faire un travail approfondi. Ne le limitons pas juste là, maintenant, dès l'entame. C'est ce que je souhaiterais dire à ce propos-là. Et donc, il y a effectivement cet appel pour le 10 au dialogue. Je vais, si on pouvait descendre, voilà, merci. Donc, pour la question du groupe de travail, je crois que nous sommes dans une perspective où il n'y a pas d'opposition entre les organes consultatifs dont nous reconnaissons l'expertise et la qualité et les États partis. Je crois que ce que nous voulons, c'est avoir un mécanisme de consultation pour que les choses s'améliorent. Donc, à la limite, il aurait même pu s'agir d'un groupe de travail mixte avec les organes consultatifs parce qu'ils sont concernés aussi au premier chef. Donc, peut-être, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la mise en place d'un groupe de travail, mais ne le limitons pas forcément parce que je crois qu'il faut que nous améliorions le dialogue avec les organismes consultatifs. Je ne pense pas que nous puissions les exclure de ce groupe-là. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Colombia, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Nuestra delegación quisiera hacer como una reflexión un poco más amplia en cuanto a lo que puede estar sucediendo, más allá de culpabilizar a una u otra parte de esta convención. Recordemos, el espíritu de la convención es un espíritu de diálogo, de cooperación, de confianza, en donde claramente hay de manera fundamental tres partes que son los estados partes, el secretariado hecho por el Centro de Patrimonio Mundial y los órganos asesores. En la medida en que vemos que hay un número creciente de solicitudes por parte de los Estados parte de proyectos de nominación, hay también claramente una escasez de recursos humanos y económicos que afectan los procesos. Nosotros quisiéramos hacer un llamado para un cumplimiento mucho más estricto de la Convención en sí misma y de sus directrices operativas. Efectivamente, reconocemos, y yo creo que debemos reconocer en un elemental sentido de justicia, errores de las tres partes, no solamente de una de las partes, en este caso de los órganos asesores. Probablemente los Estados parte también tenemos responsabilidades claras al proponer expedientes que no están lo suficientemente claros o lo suficientemente maduros y al tratar de buscar por unos mecanismos que algunas veces se salen propiamente del marco de la Convención, su rápida inscripción en la lista del patrimonio mundial. En ese sentido, pues nosotros quisiéramos buscar una reflexión un poco más amplia y poder determinar efectivamente cuáles son los problemas que nos están afectando, mucho más allá de culpabilizar al lado más flaco de la cuerda, el lado por donde habitualmente se puede romper esa cuerda, que es el de los órganos asesores. En ese sentido, pues nosotros queremos respaldar algunas de las iniciativas que se han plasmado en este proceso, en este proyecto de decisión. Sin embargo, invitaríamos a hacer una reflexión más amplia y a tratar de encontrar efectivamente la raíz del problema y no solamente quedarnos en los síntomas culpabilizando a los órganos asesores. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My delegation is of the view that this is a good idea to discuss working methods intersessionally, as there are many issues that are not only relating to the work of the advisory body, but the work of the committee and the secretariat to help improve efficiency and transparency. However, we'd like to focus among these many amendments to the envisioned working group, cognizant of the fact that there might be a drain on very limited resources of the committee. We would like to have this working group to be informal, ad hoc structure and open to all interested delegations, including the advisory bodies, as was suggested earlier. Thus, our amendment will be to add to the whatever number it is right now, the words informal, open-ended working group. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you scroll up to the first of the text? Thank you. Concerning paragraph 3 and 4 from Turkey, I completely agree the substance, but I think that is already included in the sense in the other paragraph. That was 9, I forgot, but taking because the effort was mentioned and the burden was mentioned. I mean, that is included in effort, including financial burden. So I hope to keep a rather simpler form. And also, I support, okay, then I go to establishing of the group. First, I support the informal, open-ended, and mixed working group. And also, should we delete as a standing consultative body of the committee? And if we mention standing consultative body of the committee, can that include all the state parties, of course, not only the member states? And also, okay, then could you, and if that is a mixed group, we should delete in order to consult with advisory bodies to be consistent. And could you go up, and at paragraph 10, I support the deletion of the paragraph suggested by Algeria, because that establishment may come after the examination in the body group. And also, I support paragraph 9 by Germany and Finland. And because if so, underline the importance of observing of the guidelines, what is the operational guidelines, especially paragraph 159 or something, because those two are very important, but we should observe other rules. And I'm not quite sure about the wording, so please clean it up later. And could you go up once again? Okay. And also concerning, so I hope to delete paragraph 3 and 4 of Turkey. That is already included in essence in the other paragraph. And also paragraph 5, this is quite true, but this may be able to put the spirit already put somewhere, or if not, we can put simple words in other sentence rather than making one separate paragraph. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Algeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I agree with Japan on the suppression of paras 3 and 4. Now, having said that, let me also go to paragraph 9, if possible. Paragraph 9, I will delete paragraph 9 for the reasons that we are always credible. And this paragraph is limited in the scope, first, and it has nothing to do with our credibility. That's why I am strongly asking you that it will be suppressed. Let me now go to paragraph 12, please. No, paragraph 11, which is here now, in the French version. Alors, le paragraphe 11. Un groupe de travail incluant les organisations ouvertes. Alors, I have a question here. Is there any financial implication if we establish the working group as informal or as permanent? Is there any difference? I need this clarification because I have in mind what our colleague from Lebanon said, that if we establish a new mechanism for the scientific divergence opinion, then it will imply financial implications. Then, if we are to establish this formal or informal, is there any, before I go through my, please, I will take the floor to explain my amendments to this paragraph. First, I wish to hear from the Secretariat if there is any financial implication.
Thank you. Algeria, the Secretariat, Mr. Rao will explain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you would note, I had requested you to give me the floor after all the committee members had spoken. I don't want to interfere in your decision-making process, but just to highlight the fact that all these mechanisms and groups and standing committees that you are establishing have very significant cost to it. We are still coping with the fallout of the open-ended working group created by the General Assembly to look at the rules for electing members of the committee. We've had to do a lot of fundraising to appeal to states parties to be able to get the resources to have those meetings. There are meetings, costs, direct costs, interpretation costs, staff time, scheduling costs. There are tremendous costs to every mechanism that you create. If it is an open-ended working group, you'll have to provide for members to come, you'll have to pay for the advisory bodies to participate. There are tremendous costs, both time and resources involved. And you yourselves have expressed concern about the increasing costs and workload when we discussed items 11 and 12. And there are conflicting messages that you're sending out here. You're expressing concern about increasing workload and increasing cost, and then you're increasing workload and cost here again through this mechanism. So I would just like to highlight those aspects, Madam Chairperson, before you make a final decision on that. Secondly, on the issue of appeals mechanism, there is also perhaps a legal issue there, assigning this work to an independent body, and I would request that you give the floor to the legal advisor to comment on that. And lastly, perhaps it might be time to take a break for 10 minutes so that we could put all these amendments together and give you a paper version of this document to look at, because it's getting too confusing for the rapporteur to take into account all your suggestions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Legal, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais intervenir sur le paragraphe 11 et rappeler bien évidemment que le groupe de travail que souhaite constituer le comité, que la composition soit bien déterminée. Pour l'instant, si je comprends bien, et sauf si j'ai mal compris, c'est un groupe de travail informel et ouvert qui sera aussi ouvert aux organisations consultatives. Je voulais avoir des précisions sur ce sujet. Alors, sur le paragraphe 10, concernant la mise en place d'un mécanisme de recours, pour l'instant, les directives opérationnelles ne prévoient pas un tel recours. Bien évidemment, il serait toujours possible, si le comité le décide, de créer un autre organe pour pouvoir trancher de telles questions. Mais bien évidemment, cette question repose sur le comité. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Lebanon.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, peut-être qu'on attend, qu'on suspend un peu la salle, la réunion, de façon à ce que vous puissiez distribuer à tout le monde ce papier. Nous avions juste deux petites remarques. Effectivement, il y avait un problème de traduction dans un des paragraphes. Au début, un problème de... Alors ça s'appelait le travail généreux, pas généreux, je ne sais plus comment, des organes consultatifs. En français, ça ne marche pas bien. En anglais, ça marchait très bien, comme l'avait proposé le travail altruiste. Oui, en français, ça ne marche pas très bien. En anglais, selfless, ça marche bien. Donc, c'est un problème de traduction. Mais surtout, le dernier paragraphe. La proposition que nous avions faite d'un groupe de travail restreint d'un représentant de chaque groupe régional, c'était dans le but d'abord d'être efficace.
I'm sorry, I have a point of order from Algeria.
Yes.
I was hoping that I could give it back to the floor once you're finished, but I think they would like to take the floor. Algeria, have the floor.
Yes, Madam, because I requested the floor before, after having heard the Secretariat and the legal advisor, and I said to you, please, I will take the floor in order that I will present my amendments.
Sorry, I must have missed that, but you have the floor now.
In any case, thank you. But having said that, I do agree with the legal advisor that the new mechanism is not envisaged under the actual convention we have. Okay. Then I do understand the difficulty of envisaging such mechanism. But if we have to look at the issue at stake on the financial implications, this applies for both. Envisaging a new mechanism or a working group or informal working group. My proposal then would be that the informal open-ended working group has to be envisaged during the sessions of the committee. In that situation, we could avoid the financial implications. This is first. Now, second, of course, that the committee has also the right to envisage such mechanism. My question to the Secretariat is how then it was dealt with when the case of the National Park of Kokoda was examined through a mechanism that was established at that time with the scientific committee of universities that took the case in order to help for the decision making. And it was the case effectively in 1998. Voilà, so the question on scientific opinion. Then could we have, that's why my proposal is that we have to keep both the difference of opinion and also the opinions related to scientific ones. Both are there. And it has to be examined on both sides. But I need this answer from the Secretariat, please, Madam, for our better understanding of the entire question. That goes beyond, I agree with you, that goes beyond the actual, comment dire, the current convention we have. Thank you.
Merci. I pass on to the legal for clarification. You have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente, j'étais un petit peu court dans ma réponse tout à l'heure. Je voulais rappeler que de tels mécanismes de toute façon ne sont pas prévus dans la Convention et que par conséquent il n'y a pas de mécanisme de différent et qu'un tel mécanisme de recours ne serait pas possible sans pouvoir modifier avant la Convention. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Algeria, would you still like the floor?
Yes, please, because
the floor.
we couldn't get the answer as regards the case in 1998. It was used. Then how it was used? Okay.
Legal, do you have an answer? I'm sorry, the Secretariat cannot answer your question. Lebanon is offering to answer. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bon, d'abord, je reviens au paragraphe 11 pour essayer d'expliciter un peu notre proposition. Notre proposition de faire un groupe limité à un représentant de chaque région, c'était de façon justement à ne pas faire l'odyssée du working group sur la composition régionale du comité. Parce que si on va faire un énorme working group ouvert à tout le monde, open-ended, on rentre dans une histoire qui ne finira jamais. Bon, l'idée c'était de faire un petit groupe d'un représentant de chaque région qui dialogue avec les États parties et qui, à la prochaine session du comité, on pourra faire vraiment à ce moment-là un vrai working group et ce petit working group aura préparé un peu le terrain, disons. Si vous pensez que ce n'est pas utile, si les membres du comité pensent que ce n'est pas utile, on peut oublier cette proposition. Pour revenir sur la question du Independent Scientific Opinion, dans le cas de Kakadou, mais aussi dans d'autres cas, il y a eu Kakadou, il y a eu Cologne, etc. Ce n'est pas le comité qui a commissionné un organisme indépendant. C'est l'État partie lui-même qui est venu faire une contre-expertise qui, dans certains cas, a montré que ICOMOS avait raison, comme dans le cas de Cologne. Et dans d'autres cas, c'était une contre-expertise. Donc, c'est les États parties eux-mêmes qui peuvent faire des contre-expertises. C'est leur droit. Ils font ce qu'ils veulent. Ils font ce qu'ils veulent. À Cologne, c'est l'État partie qui a commandé l'étude d'impact, par exemple. Hein, c'était une demande du comité que l'État partie fasse une étude d'impact. Il a fait une étude d'impact. Voilà. Merci.
Thank you very much. I would like to just pick up on the suggestion made by Mr. Rao earlier, which means a 10-minute break for people to convene and to create a draft. I still have 5 state parties wishing to speak. I would ask if you mind having a break then speaking, or would you like to speak before we break?
We will distribute the draft decision as it is amended.
The draft decision as amended will be distributed. Okay, so India and then Germany. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, India is very pleased that this draft that we have moved has full ownership now. I think that is the spirit of the committee. Could we just have a look at the draft from the top? Because as Senegal said, I think it's evolved so much that it's somewhat confusing. Well, but I think we have got there. Just some small points, very small points. Maybe some reordering. We could do that later, but what I feel is that after para 1 as it stands, perhaps if it reads better and if everyone agrees, we should do para 1, 3,
but,
4, 5, and then 2.
Distinguished colleague from India, I would like to allow people to break and work on it, but unless somebody wishes to speak on anything else, they will have the floor, because as our delegate from Senegal said, it's getting really confusing for everybody.
Just one point then, Madam Chair, with your indulgence.
Please.
We will do the rest of all of that later. The tweaking can be done later. On the working group that has been proposed, just one tiny point. What we feel is that for the working group to be fully useful, it would be good if the working group meets intersessionally. That is, from now, leading on to the 39th session, because that is when it can focus, concentrate, come up with concrete recommendations, which then can be presented to the 39th session. So that was the one input I wanted to give before we break. Thank you.
Thank you. Germany?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, we do agree with what has just been said by distinguished delegate of India. Intersessional meeting shouldn't have costs. This is why we propose, and in this respect we agree with Lebanon very much. We would only like to add one, to change a little bit the name of the group, ad hoc working group composed of the Bureau. We have no translation in this case, so no additional costs. We can meet in Paris. I think it would be slim and hopefully efficient.
No informal and mixed.
And not mixed.
Well, Mr. Rao would like to clarify with regards to the Bureau suggestion made by Germany. Mr. Rao, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee had amended its rules of procedure for the Bureau not to meet intersessionally. The Bureau meets only when the committee is in session, so you can't have a formal meeting of the committee of the Bureau. Moreover, somebody has to convene this meeting, so there is a cost to it. Who is going to convene? Where are they going to meet? It's all a question that you have to resolve. Huh? Every meeting will have a cost attached to it, one way or the other. Thank you.
Germany.
Thank you. I would answer directly. It's not the Bureau, clear. Composed of the Bureau. You see, it's a definition, brief definition. It's not the Bureau. It's not a Bureau meeting. It will be composed of the members of the Bureau. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Turkey, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, we should not restrict this. If we're going to define and make it more practical, then the committee can meet instead of Bureau or, one representative of each group. The committee can meet informally. Thank you.
You're referring to the World Heritage Committee, correct? Just to clarify. Thank you. Senegal, you have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, très brièvement, parce que je n'avais pas souhaité reprendre la parole, parce que la question des finances que je souhaitais poser avait été reprise par certaines délégations. Mais je crois que la proposition allemande est tout à fait raisonnable, parce que nous ne devons pas avoir des coûts additionnels. Nous avons des gaps dans à peu près tous les domaines de compétences du centre, et nous ne voudrions pas que ce groupe de travail que nous soutenons, et pour nécessaire qu'il soit, engendre des coûts additionnels. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Chair. Further to the intervention from the Secretariat, we just want to make a point that there are financial implications to try and convene meetings, whether intersessionally or otherwise, and certainly it is a challenge for state parties who are not as able to participate in meetings, especially in Paris, just looking at the logistics of it. And as such, we would recommend that this is something that is considered during the 39th session, where we're all gathered and we can make our contributions equally. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamaica. Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La délégation algérienne a soumis cette proposition de modification concernant la mise en place d'un mécanisme de recours, non pas pour régler les différences d'opinion d'ordre général qui peuvent être réglées entre les organisations consultatives et l'État parti avant la tenue du comité et trouver des moyens de règlement, mais nous l'avons proposé pour régler des questions d'ordre purement scientifique. Et là, nous insistons et nous renouvelons notre confiance aux organes consultatifs, à la reconnaissance de leurs compétences et pour le travail énorme qu'ils fournissent chaque année. Donc nous n'avons pas de problème de ce côté-là. Mais nous avons eu des divergences d'ordre scientifique sur des questions pointues qui nécessitent qui nécessitent un avis d'une autorité indépendante sur les questions d'ordre scientifique purement, sur lesquelles l'État partie ne peut pas prendre position, même si il a demandé l'avis de certains scientifiques, il ne peut pas être partie et juge à la fois. Donc nous demandons que cette autorité scientifique puisse donner son avis et dont l'avis puisse être reconnu par le comité. S'agissant des questions qui se poseraient à l'occasion donc des questions d'ordre financier, elles peuvent être réglées par l'État partie qui le demande et qui le souhaite. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. I will now give point of order. Sénégal.
Madame la Présidente, nous souhaiterions vivement que la séance soit suspendue à ce stade pour nous permettre d'avancer. Merci.
Thank you. I can see people nodding in agreement, but before that, Lebanon.
Je supporte la recommandation du Sénégal.
Thank you. I will just give Mr. Rao the floor to give some conclusion remarks, and then we can break for this. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Rao,
Madam Chair. Not a concluding remark, but a quick response to what Algeria proposed in terms of getting a second scientific opinion. I would just draw the distinguished committee's attention to the budget document, and on page 9 of the English version, we have given what are known as modular costs. Each evaluation, the average cost is about $20,000 to $25,000, and for a mixed nomination, it's about $50,000. So just imagine you're going to give this cost to the advisory bodies to do the evaluation, then you give the same amount to another independent scientific opinion to carry out an evaluation and give you a second opinion. These costs are going to just increase tremendously.
Algeria, we have agreed to go on a break to discuss everything.
No,
do you mind?
Please, just very quickly. We are not asking, please, Mr. Rawa, we are not asking necessarily that we should have a second evaluation. This could happen if there is a discrepancy, a scientific discrepancy, and then at the request of the state party, then we can request an independent scientific view or opinion. We are not saying that this automatically or systematically should be the rule. Yeah, then please, this is when there is
Point of order, Lebanon.
Excuse me, Mrs. Chairman. Either we close the debate, or if we want to debate, we all have an opinion about this question of, I don't know what, we all have an opinion, so we should all speak. It's not a monologue between Algeria and the Secretariat. We're sorry.
Thank you to our. I think we will close. Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And because of the complexity of the comments and the amendments to this draft decision, what I will proceed to do is to circulate a printed version to every delegation of the text as it is now on the screens, just in order to not to withdraw or to make an involuntary mistake, and this way you can see in front of you every single comment, every single proposal. So I think this is the best way to proceed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think the session is now. We will close for 15 minutes, and 15 minutes, and then we will continue the discussion. So it is 11:40 now. We will meet at 12 o'clock to discuss this item, and good luck. Thank you.